So there's one question that I get asked quite a lot, and that is, how long should a video be? And before we even start this video, I'm going to make it really clear that there's no straightforward answer to that. It depends on the channel you're on, it depends on the message you're trying to say, it depends on your objective, it depends on what you're trying to talk about, the outcomes of all of that. Those are all things that influence the length and the type of video that you're producing. However, there is some data out there and we can learn a little bit from looking at that data. So in this video, I've put together a few different ideas, sourced a little bit of data from different studies and different channels that have researched this kind of thing to pull together a few answers to try and identify what the optimum length of video is in different areas and on different channels. So before I get started talking about this, we've put together a really handy document that's like a one-page document. You can print it off and stick it beside your computer, and it outlines all of the different video specifications for all of the different social media channels. So the maximum length you're allowed, the file size, the dimensions, all that kind of stuff. It's a handy one-page document. You can print it off, the links below. First up, Wistia, who host a huge amount of marketing videos, did a study a couple of years back where they looked at over 560,000 videos and 1.3 billion views. And they studied the drop-off and the curve of how long those videos were and the engagement on those videos and where people stopped watching them. And the results were kind of interesting. So common wisdom says that 2 minutes is about right for a video, and their results did find something kind of similar to that. So if you look at this graph that compares the length of the video to the engagement, you can see that 1 to 2 minutes, or at least up to 2 minutes, there is pretty strong engagement and view time on that. And then that starts to drop off after that. And after 2 minutes up to about 6 minutes, you can see that that slowly declines. Not completely, but a little bit. What's really interesting, actually, I think, is that after that, between 6 minutes and about 12 or 13 minutes, is that it kind of levels off. And I think that's the difference between an initial small bite of information or something interesting and then longer form, slightly longer form, detailed content. Interestingly, then beyond that, it starts to dip. So there's a sweet spot in the middle there, but there's also a really short 1 to 2 minute time frame at the front end there where engagement is strongest. But what about advertising and ads on things like YouTube? Well, YouTube did a study on their Unskippable Labs channel that looked at video ad length and looked at how people engaged with adverts in pre-roll and across the YouTube platform. And what they found that on YouTube was that there was a balance between being memorable and actual engagement. So the shorter video content between 15 and 30 seconds was really good for brand recognition and for people to be able to remember that they saw that brand. However, it took longer than that. It took sometimes 2 or 3 minutes worth of advertising or content in that advert for people to actually engage with the story. So that longer form content yielded more valuable customers in the sense that they engage with the story. However, you've got to get that content right. You can't just do a 3-minute advert. You've got to think about how to make that more story-based. Really interestingly, when they studied this, they found that the length of the top ads in 2014, when they did this study, was 3 minutes. None of them were 15 seconds. So even though we've been bred on this diet of short TV ads and thinking that internet content needs to be really, really brief, the top ads in 2014 were 3 minutes on YouTube. At 3 minutes, you can create depth, but it's really hard to get the brand in there straight away without it feeling forced. So with those types of adverts, the viewing numbers are going to be smaller, but the love for the brand is going to be greater. So it really depends on the business that you're trying to promote and the goals of that business and what you're trying to achieve. Do you need maximum reach, or do you need people to really fall in love with the brand? And that then determines the length of the content that you're producing. So with YouTube content, it's quite different. So top vloggers often have videos that range anywhere from 5 up to 25 minutes. And a lot of those are getting a lot of views. And interestingly, what YouTube have done more recently is to change the metrics and the way that they reward videos. So instead of it being done on views alone, it's now done on watch time, which is the amount of time that a channel is watched, the amount of time that a video is watched. So if lots of people click on your video but don't watch more than a minute of it when it's 10 minutes long, YouTube downgrades that video, whereas it rewards it if the opposite happens. And what that means is that if you can create really engaging 10-minute videos or 8 to 10-minute videos, that you're going to get high watch time and your videos are going to go up in the rankings. So if you blend that idea with the results that we saw earlier in Wistia, you could probably say that the ideal sort of length for a YouTube video is somewhere between about 6 and 9 minutes. Now, the reason why YouTube can do that is because it's intent driven, and that's very different from what I call passive consumption of social media. So YouTube is owned by Google. People visit YouTube because they are seeking a solution, they're seeking an answer, they're seeking something specific in the same way that they go to Google to seek out something. That means that when people arrive on a video in YouTube, they're much more geared up for watching the entire thing because they have searched for that video. Social media is very different from that. It's what I call passive consumption, because with social media, you're usually in a mode where you're just browsing and flicking through things, and you'll just chance upon something or stop on something if it happens to be relevant. So those are two very different approaches for finding and consuming content. Social media quite often is what we call snackable content. So people are, using it when they're waiting for a train or sitting on the bus or something like that, and they just want a few minutes here and a few minutes there. Quite often, that means that people aren't going to engage with the content in the same way, and that can affect how long you need to use on social media to engage with an audience. So that quite often leads to shorter content on social media. So HubSpot did a study, and they calculated that the optimum time for video on channels like Instagram is 26 seconds. They looked at Twitter and calculated that it was about 40 seconds. That's not really surprising because those channels have limits on their video length anyway. Instagram is a maximum of 60 seconds, Twitter is a couple of minutes. So those platforms that are snackable, quick, fast-rolling sort of mediums use and require video that is short, either very well crafted or just single idea snips of content that you can post regularly. So in broad strokes, you've got to first look at your objective. Are you trying to build an audience on something like YouTube? Are you trying to get really big brand reach with something like Facebook through Facebook ads? Are you just trying to engage an audience in a regular way through Instagram or Twitter? Those objectives then determine the channel you're going to use, and then the channel determines how long the video is going to be. So you've got to think of it in terms of the whole strategy from start to finish. I've put the links to some of the studies that I've been talking about in this video below. I've also put a link to the guide that I mentioned at the beginning of this video. If in doubt, just get out there and try it. Upload some stuff, see how it goes, check it, test it, see what the engagement's like, try something different, and then just keep trying the different platforms. But have a think of your strategy before you start that and think about what you're trying to achieve. Good luck with it. See you next time. My name's David Kilkelly.